Hello, everyone. Anthony from Traders Ultimate Edge here. We'll talk a little bit about today. Of course, the big news being Powell. So this morning, well, step it back a little bit. Coming into this morning, overnight, Moderna's CEO had said, "Well, we don't know how effective our vaccine is going to be," and that dropped the markets here. Okay, and it looked like the markets were about to shrug that off, which they should. They were about to shrug that off. And then right about here is where Powell started testifying to a Senate committee today, and he started talking about inflation. And so let's explain a little bit, if you don't know, why inflation is so high right now. One of the big issues, and there's a few issues, but one of the big issues is supply chain constraints. So supply and demand being what it is, it lowers supply to deal with the demand, thus pushing prices higher. So that's one of the reasons that it's one of the big reasons actually that inflation is so high right now. So when you're talking about the Omicron variant, and there's issues about potential lockdowns, issues with labor markets in various countries around the world, which could only make supply chain issues worse. And then today, which it looked like the market was coming to grips with, right? But then today, and this I did not expect this from Powell. I did not expect his testimony to go like this. Powell knows how to walk a very fine line, but he did not walk it today. He said that he says, it appears that factors pushing inflation upward will linger well into next year, which we already knew, right? We already knew that it was probably going to continue at least half the way through next year. And then he said, well, we need to taper asset purchases faster to get a handle on inflation. And in this particular circumstance, you're talking about tapering asset purchases faster to finish that faster. He said within a couple of months sooner, so that could be April, because I think they're aiming at June right now. And after they finish the tapering, and this is what pushed the market down. After they finish the tapering, they're going to start raising the federal fund rate. They've already said that they're not going to do it until after they finish tapering. Now, I think a federal fund rate increase in Q4 next year was already priced into the market. I think that was priced into the market. Everybody knew it was coming for Q4, maybe for Q3. But now they're looking at possibly Q2, and that is what pushed the market down. That's what pushed the market down. And when you're doing something like that in the same environment, as to control inflation, but you're doing it in the same environment as talking about economic disruptions from coronavirus, and all of the spending was what helped recover from coronavirus, then it kind of it just pushed everybody into a tizzy. They're like, well, how are we going to recover the economy if you're pushing harder to stop buybacks and raise the funds rate, and then you've got another half of the market that's like, wait, they're going to raise the fund rates faster? Okay, well, we better sell. So you've got a couple of really big groups right here just selling because that's the only thing that they can do. So the whole thing here hinges on whether Omicron is an emergency or not. I've done some reading again today. I've read the reports coming out of South Africa. So far, it appears this variant of coronavirus is actually less severe than Delta so far. If that's the case, even if it's more transmissible, I mean, that could actually be fine. If it could displace the more deadly Delta variant with a less deadly version of the disease, I mean, that seems like a step up to me. So there's that to be looking at, and there's also the vaccines and the treatments. I forget who it was, but somebody else came out with information that their treatment was going to be fine. It was an antiviral treatment. I forget who it was. And then Pfizer's CEO said he talked a little bit about how their pill is made, and if you go look at it, it's interesting. It prevents an enzyme that allows coronavirus to replicate itself. It has nothing at all to do with the spike protein mutations that coronavirus that the Omicron variant has. So it shouldn't affect the efficacy of that treatment at all. So if you look at that and you look at the fact that they can rework the vaccine a little bit in a very quick amount of time. I think at this point they're about 90 days from shipping that, and the fact that the variant appears to be less severe. I don't think there's going to be a further threat to supply chains. And as long as there isn't a further threat to supply chains and the labor market continues to grow and get back to normal, and supply chain disruptions um, they decrease, that's anti-inflationary, right? That well, at the very least, it's not as inflationary, right? So that would be a very good thing for the Fed as far as when they would taper or when they would raise rates. Now, the Fed meeting is in 2 weeks. It's 14th to 15th of December, I believe, and they're not likely to make or announce any change to the tapering schedule before then. So that's when they're going to get together and talk about it, okay? So we got a couple of weeks. In these next couple of weeks, anytime in these next couple of weeks, and I think this has a really good chance of playing out, it is discovered that our treatments work fine. The vaccines, even if they got to be tweaked a little bit, they're going to work fine. And the Omicron emergency is not such an emergency. Then they go into that meeting with that news, and they can look at the tapering differently. And I think the market will look at it differently. But right now, that's the concern: is that we have supply chain issues that are being pushed worse by the Omicron, which will push inflation further, which will push the Fed to have to raise funds rate for quicker. That's the big concern, and that's why we had like this double whammy that knocked the market down today. It's of my opinion that this gets worked out and the markets are going to move back up. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I mean, maybe we'll get a further sell-off. I'm not sure. It looked here at the end of the day. Let's have a look at the end of the day. It can tell us a lot. So I think this here may have been a bit of a risk off heading into the close. I don't think a lot of people wanted to hold overnight. Okay, and then we can drop down to the 1 minute here. Actually, let's go down to the 30-second, get a really good look at it. Okay, right here, right into the close. So we have 5 minutes here prior to close. We push up. Okay, and we push up because this is short covering. Okay, so everybody who is short, they're covering their positions. And then what happens right here is people buy too. So when everybody's done short covering, people sell off the profits, and that's why it usually drops right there, right before the close like this. This is normal. This happens dang near every day. And then right here, it popped again after the close. This was people that shorted this move. Isn't that funny? But then look, it goes from 62 all the way to a high of 84. It jumped up 22 points right after the close. Okay. That's why I'm looking at this, and the move I believe to be overblown, because the fears of Omicron still linger. The fears of the Fed raising the funds rate quicker, is a very real possibility because inflation's running so hot. It's a very real possibility. Like I say, I think Q4 was baked in. Q3 was a possibility. Pushing it into Q2 is a surprise for the market. And the market doesn't like surprises. And, like I say, the Fed had previously said that they aren't going to raise that rate until they're done tapering. And right now tapering was going into June. So that's the concern. We've got to relieve supply chain issues to help the Fed do their job, right? And that's going to happen once information comes out that Omicron is not quite as dangerous, perhaps, as it was believed, or our treatments are going to be just fine. So that's my thought on the market. I'm Even after this news, I'm staying long. I haven't sold out of any of my positions. Just holding. Everything is long dated. We sold some credit against Google and Amazon today, and they still looked fine even in that pullback. The numbers are still looking fine, and in fact, if I wasn't already allocated, I probably would have sold more. But I think that's fine. I think all the positions that I think being long here is fine. Again, and I've said this for the last 2 weeks, well, a week and a half anyway. Um, have long dated options. February, okay? If you're trading the overall markets, be out into February. All right. I love all of you guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to all my clients. And I do hope you have a nice evening. Take a deep breath. Go drink. Go have yourself scotch if you're a drinker. If you're not, then have yourself your favorite soda and a candy bar. All right. I love all of you guys. Have a great evening. I'll talk to you more.